she will keep having our back as governor of the state of New York. How many of you are going to work hard and make sure you vote, and make sure your friends vote, and your families vote across this state and across this country? Raise your hands. And don't forget, we have great Senate races in states like Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Wisconsin, and Ohio. And don't forget Florida, and don't forget Arizona, and don't forget Arizona and Nevada. We are going to keep the Senate in Democratic hands. So get out there. Get out there. Work for Kathy. Work for our whole Democratic ticket in New York. Work across the country. On to Victory Tuesday.
Please welcome to the stage Congressmember Carolyn Maloney.
New York women and men, vote for Kathy Hochul, our next governor. I just came from the airport where our Vice President, Kamala Harris, has flown in to speak with you in support of Kathy Hochul. She'll be here in a second. She stopped at Reverend Butts' funeral, but she's on her way. And just recently, we had the President of the United States was here, announcing an agreement with him that Micron Technology is going to spend over $100 billion over the next couple of years building an enormous complex of semiconductors in Syracuse, providing 9,000 jobs, paying high-tech jobs, and another 40,000 related jobs. Tell me Kathy Hochul doesn't mean business. She's brought more jobs in with this than any of the Republican predecessors. And today, in 5 days, we're going to have a historically important, and I would say monumentally important choice to make in this election. We must choose between a proven leader and a longtime champion of women's rights, men's rights, the environment, health care, everything, or a man who has voted no on so many things important to New York, including a woman's right to choose. Kathy has made progress on the things that really matter in our state. I'm going to just talk about my district. In my district, we had these plants, these peaker plants that were polluting everyone and causing asthma. She closed 2 of them down and is changing the largest peaker plant, polluting plant in New York into hydro energy and solar energy to fight climate change for your future. And in infrastructure, in my district alone, she's brought the state funds to build up to 125th Street for the 2nd Avenue subway, making life better for every people. And in December, she's opening up what we call East Side Connector, Madison Connector, bringing the LIRR, over a $10 billion project bringing jobs, improved quality of life. Thank you, Governor Hochul. And she recently announced a new strategy to expand safety on those subways with more cops, cameras, and care, making your trips to Barnard safer and every trip for every New Yorker. These are the kinds of things that matter in people's lives, and she is the one that has done it. I can talk from personal experience. When she first got elected to Congress, she defeated in a Republican, one of the most Republican district in the country. She defeated a Republican. She had no place to stay, so she came and lived with me. So I can tell you from very close observation, she's tough, conscientious, fearless, tireless, collaborative, and wicked smart. In other words, she's the whole package. In fighting crime, combating COVID, strengthening our economy, helping our small businesses, And she's also a deeply devoted mother and wife. And she knows how hard it is for women to divide time between jobs, and she's been a big fighter for our rights her whole life. Now let's look at her opposition. I'm going to call him Mr. No. This is what he's voted against. Mr. No has voted against the Paycheck Fairness Act. The rescue plan for New York that brought billions of dollars to fight COVID, he voted no. The Build Back Better Act, he voted no. The John Lewis Voting Rights Act, he voted no. He not only voted against a woman's right to choose, he voted against the Right to Contraception Act. So when he tells you what he's going to do, look at what he's done. And what he's done is he even voted no to the authorization of the Violence Against Women Act. I don't understand that. So we have a clear choice, someone who can get things done with a proven record, and someone who can fight for us. We have 5 days till election time. How many of you are going to be at the subway stops or out telling your friends and neighbors to get out to vote in these last 5 days? You know, we had a great American, Thomas, who said he was a great, Nathan, who was the great, you're a Barnard student, the great revolutionary writer, and Thomas Paine. Yes, I even remembered it, and I didn't even go to Barnard. Let me tell you, you know what Thomas Paine said during the Revolutionary War when our life was really on the line? He had a famous line that came out, and he said, "Don't send me a summertime warrior. Don't send me one who wants sunshine and easy times. Send me a hard-fighting warrior." There is a lot on this line between now and the election. If we don't re-elect her, you saw what Mr. No, Mr. Darkness, is going to bring us. Including this, we didn't even get to student loans, the forgiveness of student loans, a Democratic pride. He voted no on that too. So I don't want to see any summertime warriors. We need revolutionary warriors that are going to get out there and make sure that we carry Kathy Hochul on our back to Albany, because she deserves it. Vote for yourself. Vote for New York. Get out and vote for Kathy Hochul, and bring all your friends.
Please welcome to the stage Attorney General Tish James.
I just love the energy of young people. You fill my heart. Listen, we are here today because there's nothing more inspiring, nothing more impactful, nothing more powerful than a room full of young people who are committed to change. And that's why we are here this afternoon. You're committed to moving mountains and making change and changing the course of history here in the state of New York by electing the first woman governor of the state of New York, Kathy Hochul. And while you're at it, re-electing the first woman attorney general. So, I like call and response. I say Kathy, you say Hochul. Kathy. Hochul. Kathy. Hochul. I say Tish, you say James. Tish. James. Tish. James. I say Chuck, you say Schumer. Chuck. Schumer. Chuck. Schumer. He wanted me to say that. Yeah. So listen, you know, this afternoon you've seen some really powerful women, and you're going to see our first nation's Vice President, female Vice President Kamala Harris in a few minutes. Yeah. And of course, the first woman to be elected statewide in New York, and the first woman to lead a national ticket on as a presidential nominee, Hillary Rodham Clinton. And of course, New York's first female governor, Kathy Hochul, you know, she took office during a very challenging time, and she's done it with conviction and purpose, but more importantly, with dignity and grace. And of course, you heard from our great, great Senate Majority Leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousins. Is Brooklyn in the house? Right there, just right there. You heard from one of the baddest sisters from Brooklyn, the first Latina Puerto Rican United States Congresswoman, La Luchadora Nydia Vasquez. And you heard from the president of the Men Who Get It Club. Yes, there's such a club, and the president is our great Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer. All of us on this stage tonight can tell you our history-making victories were only possible because of motivated and civic-minded individuals, and all of you who are in this room, women, young people, people of color, and concerned voters, concerned about our democracy, concerned about our future, concerned about the fate of this country, concerned about our state. People who know that the cost of inaction is too high to sit back and let others decide what the future will look like for them or their families. Voters that understood that we all have a stake in this game, and we all must take part in building the community, the state, the country that we all deserve. A country and a state where all of us are part of one human family, where all of us must march arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder, where all of us must lift each other up. In this election, my friends, the stakes are too high for all of us, but specifically for women. We cannot sit it out. We cannot stand by the sidelines. The right to make decisions about our bodies, the ability to have basic health care, Social Security for individuals who are aging out, and adequate child care. Yes, we must also, again, defend our democracy, because the pride in knowing that we live in a state that values standing up for our working people and our women is invaluable. All of this, my friends, is on the ballot, but we have a choice. We can let Republicans roll back the rights of women, members of the LGBTQ community, and immigrants, or we can say hell no. What did you say? I can't hear you. Thank you. Don't tell your parents I told you how to curse. We can use the power of our voices, the power, my friends, that's in your hand. And all of you right here today can unleash that power by voting, by going to those polls now and on Tuesday, Election Day, and voting like ever before, and bringing your friends and your loved ones and your family members, and let everyone know that we're not going backwards, only forward. Across the country and in New York State, Republicans have been clear about their agenda, advocating for treating legal asylum seekers with no humanity, just to score cheap political points with their base. Giving tax breaks to multi-billion-dollar corporations while doing nothing to help working families struggling to make ends meet. Cutting hard-earned Social Security benefits, and even thinking about cutting Medicaid when they become governor. And then letting local politicians decide what's right for a woman's body. They're climate deniers. They're election deniers. They're gun control deniers. Republican and anti-reproductive rights forces were slow and methodical in how they dismantled Roe. They started 50 years ago and they never stopped until they got what they wanted. And while those of us who want to protect choice, we too must be just as methodical. We don't have 50 years to resecure our rights. There are too many lives at stake. We need people on the side of what's right to get into the game. MAGA Republicans have been clear about where they will take us. And now we must be equally clear. That's not the New York, and that's not the America that we want. And the clearest way to make that point is to vote. I know we have quite a few students here today, but let me tell you what they say about you. The mainstream media, political pundits, the campaign consultants, they always try to count you out. They dismiss you. They say that young people don't vote, that you're not involved in politics, that you don't care about your neighbor, that you only care about yourself, that you're only focused on social media. That's it. That's what they say about you. But what I say is they're wrong. Because, my friends, all throughout history, it's always been young people, not politicians. It's always been young people who have moved us forward. Because, you see, it was young people who were marching in the streets and getting their heads bashed in during Selma, Alabama. Individuals, young people, SNCC, marching with Dr. Martin Luther King from Selma to Montgomery for the right to vote. It was young people who said, yes, we can, and elected Barack Obama. It was young people who stood in the way of the tanks in Tiananmen Square in China fighting for democracy. It's young people all across this world who are standing in the way, demanding democracy and demanding their votes be counted. Young people. It was young people who stood and marched in Parkland, Florida to demand common sense gun control. Not politicians. It wasn't politicians. It was all of you, young people. Young people who are going to turn up this Tuesday and early voting. It's young people who will march into those polls with your friends and your foes and march in quiet dignity to what is happening here in our country. The future, my friends. They will not push us backwards. Because it's up to you, all of you, this is your country, all of you, and you must recognize that you must not allow them to push us backwards. Forward always, backwards never. My trust and belief is in all of you, and I need all of you, not to just attend a rally and make noise, but to go back home, to leave these four walls, knock on doors, tell people to come out and vote, tell them what's at risk, tell them what's at stake, and urge them to come out and vote. I've done my job as the Attorney General these last 3.5 years. And as I said earlier, I will not allow anyone, including the former President of the United States, to bully me. No. Like all of you, I will not bow, I will not break, and I will not be intimidated by anyone. Because I know that all of you have my back. And that all of you will join with me. All of you will join with me and stand up for this country and stand up for what's right and recognize that there's only one system of law and that no one is above the law. So I need you to knock on doors, pass out phone bank on behalf of candidates that support your values. We've gained so much under Democratic leadership. We can't turn back. We won't turn back. We can't be complacent and let the other side win and face regrets of what we could and should have done, because then, my friends, it'll be too late. We must not be paralyzed by fear. We must not be paralyzed by inaction. We must march forward, my friends, and we must stand with myself and the great governor, Governor Kathy Hochul, as we once again prove that if you need a good job done, no. If you need a great job done, then give it to a woman.
Said, brother, can I borrow a thin, brother, you know, a dime?
Please welcome to the stage Secretary Hillary Clinton.
Wow. Hello. How are you all? Wow. I am so excited to be here with all of you. I want to thank all the Columbia Democrats for hosting this. It is so good to be back at Barnard and to be with so many representatives of our government at the local, state, and national level who care about your future and are doing everything they can to make a difference. And I personally am thrilled that we're going to have Vice President Harris with us today. I want to thank all of my wonderful former colleagues and friends who you will be seeing, including Attorney General Tish James, New York Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins, New York City Council Speaker Adrian Adams, my former colleague in the Senate Chuck Schumer, and of course, Governor Kathy Hochul. Now, you're going to hear from the governor and the vice president. I just want to put what we're doing here today in some context, because this election on Tuesday is one that will have such far-ranging repercussions. And I think you know that. That's why you're here. But I am going to ask you to get out after today's rally and literally get everybody you know to turn out and vote early, vote on Tuesday, because every issue that I can think of that I imagine you could care about is literally on the ballot. You know, I've known Kathy Hochul for a long time. She and I have worked together. I really appreciate the way she's bringing new leadership and stability and new hope for our future to New York. And I think it's about time, since this was the state where the women's suffrage movement was born, that we would have a woman governor. Now, when I think about Kathy, I think about someone who actually legitimately cares about the people of this state and has proven it over her long life in public service. And as lieutenant governor, she crisscrossed New York, literally going to every single county and a lot of the towns and villages and hamlets within them, bringing all kinds of good ideas, bringing people together. But this election, like every election, is a choice. And it's not just a choice between two candidates. It is a choice between two very different ideas about who we are as a state and a country, how we should work together or not, what kind of future we want for ourselves, our children, and our grandchildren. I think it's fair to say that if you paid attention to this campaign, the Republicans make no secret about what they want to do. They actually say the quiet part out loud. And Lee Zeldin, Kathy's opponent, along with, good response, along with Donald Trump and their allies, are literally fighting tooth and nail to turn back the clock. Think about it.
Yes, of course, they want to turn back the clock on abortion. They spent 50 years trying to make that happen. But they want to turn back the clock on women's rights in general, on civil rights, on voting rights, on gay rights. They are determined to exercise control over who we are, how we feel and believe and act in ways that I thought we had long left behind. But they have gone even further. They want to put more guns on our streets, more pollution in our air and our water, more power for the super rich and less for everybody else. That is their vision. And it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody who's actually paid attention. And so we have to hold them accountable for that. And one of the ways of doing it is by making sure that Kathy Hochul remains our governor. Now, she's already made a difference. She's already helped to create good-paying jobs. I don't know if any of you are from the Hudson Valley or from the Syracuse area, but working in partnership with the Biden administration, within the last 3 weeks, we've had these huge announcements. $100 billion by Micron outside of Syracuse. $100 billion. $20 billion by IBM in the Hudson Valley. Why? Because the Biden administration and the Democratic Congress passed a law that finally said, we're going to get serious about advanced manufacturing, chips, and everything else that makes the modern economy run. And so Kathy Hochul got on the phone and started calling companies that she knew were on the brink of making big decisions about where to put these advanced manufacturing plants. And she made the case for New York. And it was a case that, you know, she made with passion. She's from New York. She's from the Buffalo area. She gets the fact that upstate New York really began the Industrial Revolution in America, fell on some hard times, and we have a chance to bring it back if we have Kathy Hochul as the governor working to do just that. So, you know, when I think about what the Republicans intend to do, and I pay attention, because I can remember not so long ago I was telling people they're going to stack the Supreme Court and they're going to overturn Roe v. Wade, and I have faint memories of people saying, oh, that's so exaggerated. So let me tell you, they're going to cut Social Security and Medicare in order to give more tax cuts to the wealthy. That is the plan. And if you don't think it will happen, just listen to them. And if you are still on Twitter, I am, if you still are, there is some great video of the Republican senator from Utah, Mike Lee, saying out loud that he wants to pull Social Security and Medicare up by the roots and get rid of them. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't imagine that that's a popular opinion if people actually hear it. So make sure everybody you know hears it for the next couple of days. And, you know, we have to look at all of the important matters that are at stake. And I have to also just reflect that I've seen, I'm sure you have, well, maybe you don't watch television, but if you did, you would see what I see, which are ads about crime every 30 seconds, right? No solutions, but just a lot of really fearful, scary pictures and scary music. And of course, I want everybody to be safe. Honestly, who's against that? But then a terrible crime happens in San Francisco. An intruder hits an 82-year-old man in the head with a hammer who happens to be married to the Speaker of the House, and the Republicans joke about it. the woman running for governor in Arizona jokes about it. Now, why would any sensible person want to give power to somebody who thinks it's funny that a person gets assaulted in his own home? So, you know, they don't care about keeping you safe. They want to keep you scared so that you can't think straight and you end up voting against your interests. So, just look at Lee Zeldin's record. He voted against equal pay for women, against renewing the Violence Against Women Act, against access to abortion and even birth control, against raising the minimum wage, and funding Medicare. So I don't know why any sensible person who cares about the economy, who cares about the cost of living, who cares about, you know, how to get ahead, would vote for someone who votes against them and their families. But we have to make sure that every voter knows what's at stake. And the only way we can get the kind of future we want is to elect Democrats who care about democracy, who care about protecting our rights and our values, who respect our institutions and the rule of law. And one of those is our current governor, who I believe should be our next governor. So please join me in welcoming Governor Kathy Hochul.
Thank you. I am so on fire. I have been waiting for this opportunity to come here and to count down the days until we make history once again. And I'm so proud to have been introduced by someone who made history in her lifetime herself. Our secretary, our former First Lady, our senator, our friend, Hillary Clinton. What a woman. She has been a source of inspiration for me for decades, because I've learned from her when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And there's nobody tougher than our very own Hillary Clinton. I thank her for being here to remind us of the power of the vote. I also want to thank the speakers who came before. Thanks to this college for welcoming us, Barnard College, and to all the students, There we go. You heard from our extraordinary Attorney General. She is a fighter. You do not want to get in the way of Letitia James. She is a fighter. You heard from our Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, who's been delivering for us, bringing back the money from Washington right here in New York State so we can spend it to lift up all of our citizens. Let's give a round of applause. You also heard from my friends in Congress. You heard from Nydia Velázquez, a true leader who's a real fighter. I've worked with her for many, many years. And someone, you may not know this, but Carolyn Maloney, when I was running for Congress a decade ago, when no one thought I could possibly win in the most Republican district in the state of New York, they said, no way, no how, won't happen, and a lot of people walked away from me. Carolyn Maloney used to call me every single day and leave a voicemail. If I didn't answer, she'd say, Kathy, you're a winner, and then she'd hang up. Kathy, you're a winner, then she'd hang up. Kathy, you're a winner. And then when I went to Congress, because no one thought I'd win, I didn't even have a place to stay. I literally shared the bedroom next to her. We shared a bathroom for 6 weeks because she's that close to me. And I want to thank her for her extraordinary leadership in our House, Carolyn Maloney. And my supporters and friends in Albany, Andrea Stewart Cousins, no longer. And with all love and respect to our Speaker, Carl Heastie, now there's no longer 3 men in a room. There are 2 women and a really good guy in the room. So to all of you, I have a simple message. To all of you, but particularly to the women of New York. Women of New York. This is our moment. This is when we think of the ghosts of the past. The women who gathered in 1848 in a place called Seneca Falls. And I've often wondered how, without the benefit of social media, how they all knew to gather in one place. 300 people found their way to a place that became the intersection of rights. Native American rights, abolitionists, women's rights. It all came together in this small community in upstate New York. And if you've not been there, you need to go there. You need to go there. But I think about it often, and we were there recently, Hillary Clinton and I, talking about the legacy we've inherited. What is on our shoulders as the women of today. Because those women back then were so brave and so audacious. They went against the tides of their time. They were ridiculed and spit upon and jailed because they had the audacity to say, we have rights, and we have a right to fight for them. And if you read the Declaration of Sentiments, it's written on the wall, and you can feel their disdain dripping with every word, saying, we are sick and tired of being the properties of men. We want to have the chance to be free. We want to vote. And that happened nowhere else but right here in the state of New York. Right here in New York. And it was a long journey for that right to vote. Many, many decades. But New York was one of the first, 3 years ahead of the rest of the nation, to say that women would have the right to vote in this state. And again, later, finally, women of all colors could vote as well. It took till 1964. We finally achieved that goal that was so elusive for so long. And when it came to other rights, reproductive freedom, the right to decide whether you can make a decision about your own body, New York again was 3 years ahead of the rest of the nation. It took till Roe v. Wade. We were already 3 years ahead. And I've always been proud of the fact that we've led these movements, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, labor rights, environment. It all started in nowhere else but our state. So I put that on all of you, especially the young people. I want you to feel the weight on your shoulders as you march out of here with that determination, the guts and courage that all of those who came before us had and passed down this gift to us. In fact, they've not only passed down a gift, they've passed us the torch. And today we hold that torch in our hands. And it's up to us. And we'll be judged by generations years from now. They'll look back at this time and say, what happened in 2022? For some, it'll be a reminder that the rights that were so long and hard fought for could be stripped away by a Supreme Court, appointed by a president who never should have been there. That's what happens. That's what happens. That's what happens when complacency takes hold and people feel like, I don't need to vote because somebody else will do it, it doesn't matter. That's what happens when complacency sets in. You have rights that you counted on for over 50 years. My mother fought this battle. Reproductive freedom. I enjoyed the benefits of it. It was always there if I needed it. My daughter in her 30s, assuming it would be there for her, and my brand new grandbaby will not have the same rights that her great-grandma had. We've always been on the forward path toward progress. That's what defines us as a state. So, friends, it's up to us. How will we be judged by what we do in 2022? We march to the polls. We say we honor those women of the past, those fighters, and those who shed blood to secure the right to vote. But also we will stand up for future generations and say, we will protect the right to an abortion in this state right here, right now, and forever. But don't take it for granted, because I've heard my opponents say, oh, don't worry. The day after the Dobbs decision, nothing changed in the state of New York, so don't worry. You know why nothing changed in the state of New York? Because I'm the governor. That's why nothing changed. That's why nothing changed. I'm the governor. Right. That's right. So you want to protect that right. You want to continue having gun safety laws on the books and don't agree that every teacher should be armed and we should have people with guns on the subways. You believe that we should have common sense laws to protect our citizens from being killed in our streets. If you believe that, if you believe that we should continue investing in our people, investing in education, your education, making sure that you have this shot at the New York dream that we cherish, then you need to make sure that I'm still the governor on Wednesday. You have the power. You have the power. You have the weight on your shoulders. You have it in your DNA to continue that fight, that march forward. And don't you dare let future generations down, because they're looking to you. Just like we stand on the shoulders of people like Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris, who both made history being the first. Our first female vice president of the United States. You have witnessed history, my friends, but don't just watch it. Go out forth and make history yourselves. Make history yourselves. And people have pointed the fact, and so many moms and dads come up to me with their little daughters, and they want me to bend down and talk to them. And I've heard so many say this, and it touches my soul. Look, daughter, the first woman governor of the state of New York, you can be anything now. You can be anything. And I won't let them down. I want all those little girls to know that, yes, they can be anything. And yes, a woman has what it takes to govern a rough and tumble place like the state of New York, because I'm a fighter. I'm a fighter. I say bring it on. I love a good fight. Bring it on. Bring it on. I'll take it down. I'll take anybody down. I love a good fight. You know why I'm a fighter? Because my dad and my grandpa made steel. Okay? I have steel running through my veins because of who I am and where I come from. I come from Buffalo, New York. I am a fighter. So, I leave you with this. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready to take it to the streets? Are you ready to get out people to vote? Are you ready to save the state of New York? I'm counting on you. And with that, let me welcome a woman who has such compassion. A woman who I have long admired because she has been out there true. She's had to fight her way to the top. She has made history, but she's got a heart of gold. I've seen her in action. And let me tell you one story about our vice president, Kamala Harris. She came to Buffalo after the massacre of 10 of my neighbors. A white supremacist radicalized on social media decided that he would take arms because at the time you could be 18 years old on your birthday and walk in the store and buy an AR-15. He went to Buffalo because he was looking for the place with the highest concentration of people of color from his home. And he slaughtered my neighbors 10 minutes from where I live. And Vice President Harris came, and she met with the families. She went to the funeral, and she didn't even ask to speak. They wanted to just be there out of respect. And she was called up to speak, and she gave the most heartwarming, uplifting remarks about how you take that pain and you turn it into action. And I listened to her, and I went back to Albany. I said, we must have action for these people. We must have action for this community. We must have action for New Yorkers. And what we did was he changed the laws. We stood up and we said, no more can this happen in a state like New York. And we took away the ability for an 18-year-old to buy that weapon. We said we're going to enhance our state. We changed the laws, and we want to keep those laws in place. And I thank Vice President Harris for not just making history, but for really making a difference. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my high honor to introduce the first woman Vice President of the United States of America, Kamala Harris.
Hey, New York, we gonna get this done. We're gonna get this done. 5 days. 5 days. We're gonna get this done? Yes. We're gonna give it everything we've got? No sleep? Okay, I'm gonna hold you to that. It's good to be with all these leaders. It is so good to be with all these leaders. Listen, let's just get right down to business, because we do have 5 days. And sometimes 5 days can seem like a lot of time, but in this case, we don't have a lot of time to do something very big, which is to elect Kathy Hochul, the next and continuing governor of the state of New York. 5 days. 5 days. And Secretary Clinton said it. Tish James said it. The governor herself said it. Everything is on the line. And the thing about Kathy Hochul is she has shown you who she is. She has shown you what she cares about. She has shown you how hard she will work for the people of New York. And I believe that when you know what you stand for, you know what to fight for. So we got a lot of work to do. And as the governor said, you've witnessed a lot of history on this stage this afternoon. Oh, a whole lot of firsts. But here's the thing I know about Secretary Clinton. I know about General James. I know about Governor Hochul. We are committed. Yes, we may be the first, but we are committed to not being the last. And we're going to count on you to help us see that through. 5 days. 5 days. So we need folks to vote, right? For folks who haven't voted, we need them to vote. We need them to vote early, and we need them to vote on Election Day. And I can look around this room, and I know this is a group of leaders, most of whom have been out there already talking with people about the importance of voting, people who worked on the 2020 election and elected Joe Biden president and me vice president. And so here's the thing we all know, because a lot of us have been doing this every election cycle, asking folks to vote. And here's what happens. So we go up and we ask somebody to vote. And they will then ask a very righteous question every time. Why should I vote? Well, here's the thing. We got a whole lot of good material. We got a lot of good material, because think about it. Last election, 2020, in the height of a pandemic, so much loss of life. People lost their jobs, loss of normalcy. Parents who are trying to figure out how they could educate their kids in the middle of all this, trying to go online if they even had access to high-speed internet. And in the midst of all of that, think about it. We had an historic
turnout, and in particular, a historic turnout of young voters voting. You all. It was historic. And the way I see it is when people went in 2020 to vote, they were essentially putting in their order, right? They stood in line for hours in the midst of all of these burdens. For so many of you, if you were in school at that time, what those days meant, trying to learn from home, learn from your dorm room, wherever you were, you wanted to see people, you wanted to be with it. And in the midst of all of that, people took the time to vote, stood in line for hours to vote. And this is what they said. They said, there are certain things that I want from my government and certain things that I know I am entitled to. And so when we go to ask them to vote this time in 5 days and over the next 5 days, we're going to first of all say thank you for doing what you did last time. And then we're going to remind them. So you put in your order, and here's what your vote did. You said it is time that America deals with the issue of child poverty. And because you voted, we extended the child tax credit, which reduced poverty for children in America by over 40% in the first year. Because you voted. You said, help parents out, people who are parenting children, because it's expensive. So you put in your order and said, do something about that. And because you voted, we passed a tax cut so that people parenting children get up to $8,000 more in their pocket to help them with the cost of food and medicine and school supplies for their children, because they voted. Because people voted and said, look, I'm going to put in my order. I want y'all to deal with this climate crisis because we value the importance of drinking clean water and breathing clean air and saving this beautiful planet upon which we live. And so people put in their order, and because you voted, we just put $370 billion into an investment in what we must do to combat the effects of this climate crisis. Because you voted. Because you voted. We're going to go up to people and we're going to ask them, and they're going to say, well, why should I vote? And we're going to say, because the last time you said, you know what, y'all need to deal with the potholes and deal with the fact that America's infrastructure is about 150 years old, and we need to fix these bridges and we need to fix these roads. And because they voted, LaGuardia is now going to get $30 million for upgrades. Because they voted, we're going to have electric MTA buses and put $110 million into doing it. Because they voted, Second Avenue Subway is going to get $400 million. Because they put in their order. Because you voted. And you said, you know what? It's about time we had a black woman on the United States Supreme Court. And because you voted, her name is Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Because you voted. Because you voted and said, we're putting in our order. Student loan debt is preventing folks from being able to start a family, buy a home, or even pay rent. And because you voted, in spite of all of the criticism, we are canceling debt of up to $20,000 of student loan debt because people voted. Because people voted and said, it's been 30 years since there's been any meaningful smart gun legislation in our country. And it's about time that people have some courage to pass or do smart and safe gun legislation, that we were able to expand background checks, the most meaningful gun legislation in 30 years, because people voted and put in their order. People said, you know, you guys did a great job in 2008 and during those years reforming the healthcare system, but it's still really expensive to buy medication. And so people took the time and stood in line for hours to vote and said, can you do something about that? They said, you know, I got a lot of relatives who have diabetes. Black people in America are 60% more likely to be diagnosed with diabetes. Latinos, 70% more likely to be diagnosed with diabetes. Why do I know seniors who have diabetes who have to make a decision about whether they're going to fill a prescription that a doctor ordered because it will save their life versus being able to buy food or pay their rent? And because you voted, we have now capped insulin at $35 a month for those seniors. Because you voted. Because you voted and you said, you know what? This game that the pharmaceutical companies have been playing, jacking up prices on medication, is just not right. Somebody's got to be able to negotiate on behalf of the American people on this issue. And so, long time in coming, but because you voted, we are now allowing Medicare to negotiate against the pharmaceutical companies on behalf of 60 million Americans. 60 million people. Because you voted. Elections matter. Elections matter. And we have so much at stake in this one. Just think about this. The United States Supreme Court, the highest court in our land, just took a constitutional right that had been recognized from the people of America. And by the way, on this subject, I think it's important to note, one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree the government should not be telling her and anyone what to do with their own body. But now, with the Dobbs decision, we are seeing states around our country pass or propose laws that will criminalize doctors and nurses and healthcare providers, literally are providing for jail time for healthcare providers, proposing and passing laws for which there is no exception for rape or incest. When I was a courtroom prosecutor, I specialized in crimes against women and children, and in particular child sexual assault. And let me tell you guys, the idea that anyone who proposes or professes to be a leader would suggest that there would be no exception after an individual has endured and survived an act of violence and violation, and then suggest to them they will not have the autonomy after that violation of their body to make a decision about what next happens to their body. It is immoral. Immoral. It is unconscionable. Here's the other thing about that decision. So the proponents said, well, you know, let's just let the states decide. Right? Let's just let the states decide. Okay, well, those same people are some of the same people who in the states are intentionally making it more difficult for people to vote. And because it has now been pushed to the states, your governor, who has stood strong and firm her entire career, her position on this issue becomes even more important. Because listen, guys, if this happens as these Republicans are trying to push, so many of their leaders, they have said there will be a national ban on abortion. And we're going to need people in the State House and at a local level who have the courage to stand up and push back against what is happening in our country. And then that way, who is your governor matters. Who is your attorney general matters. Who is your lieutenant governor matters. Because they will be the last line of defense with what we're seeing happen around our country. Elections matter. And what we are also seeing is that if you look at, you know, I like Venn diagrams, okay? So if you look, I do. And if you look at the intersection on some of these issues, it's pretty profound and very clear. And by the way, Clarence Thomas said the quiet part out loud. Now, at risk, an individual's right to contraception. An individual's right to marry the person they love is now at risk. And if you look at where these attacks are coming from, you would not be surprised to know there is a significant intersection between those who are attacking voting rights, LGBTQ plus rights, and reproductive rights. See what's happening around our country and understand why elections matter, because again, who is all in these state houses, who are holding these offices will be potentially the last line of defense. Elections matter. You know, as vice president, I have now, well, thank you. That's me. So, as vice president in these almost 2 years, my team has told me I have now met with over 100 world leaders, directly or so directly or by phone, presidents, prime ministers, chancellors, and kings. And here's the thing that you all know, and Secretary Clinton certainly knows. When we walk into these rooms representing the United States of America, we have traditionally walked into these rooms chin up, shoulders back, talking about the importance of democracy, representing what we hold out to be the greatest democracy in the world, imperfect though it may be. But it gives us the authority then in these rooms to talk about the importance of rule of law, the importance of human rights, of free press. And in that way, we have been held out as a model. But here's the thing everyone here knows, because you are all role models. The thing about being a role model is this. People watch what you do to see if it matches what you say. So there are my greatest fear Dictators and autocrats around the world who will dare to tell their people, you want to hold out the United States as an example of these issues? Well, look at what they're doing. And in that way, what is happening in our country will very likely not only affect the people of our nation, but potentially people around the world. All of this is at stake. And on the issue then of democracies, I do believe that the nature of democracy is that there's a duality. On the one hand, when a democracy is intact, I believe it is incredibly strong in that it gives strength to its people. It is a protector and a defender of individual rights and freedoms and justice. When it is intact, there's an incredible strength in its ability to lift people up. On the other hand, it's very fragile. It is only as strong as our willingness to fight for it. And so fight we will. And so fight we will. And so we will do everything in these next 5 days, standing for the country we love, standing for the principles we hold dear. We will stand for the voices that we know have everything on the line, and we will fight for the principles that we know we hold dear, the ideals we hold dear. You know, I do believe there are two definitions of what it means to be a patriot. One is the definition that suggests you'll defend your country whatever it does, but then there is the other definition, which I believe describes all of us patriots, which is the willingness, born out of love of country, to fight for the ideals and the attainment of the ideals of our nation. That is what is at stake. And so we will fight. And when we fight, we win. Thank you.